You've probably seen this image before. It looked like a stunt for a movie, but this was no railway stunt. You're probably wondering, where did this image actually come from? Well, the story behind it, it's truly terrific. This is the story of the Montparnasse train disaster.
The Gare Montparnasse is one of Paris' 6 largest passenger stations, located in the 15th arrondissement district, in the southwest of the French capital, 132 km/82 miles west of Reims and 13 km/8 miles northeast of Versailles, both measurements in linear distance. Gare Montparnasse opened in 1840 as a terminus station before being largely rebuilt just 12 years later. It serves as the eastern end on the Paris-Brest rail line, a 622 km/386 miles double-tracked rail line connecting the French capital with the town of Brest on the Atlantic coast. Trains entered the station 10 m/33 feet above street level, keeping them separated from other traffic. Being a terminus station meant that all tracks ended at a buffer stop, requiring trains to reverse out of the station to leave. The buffer stops were followed by a 30 m/98 feet wide concourse area where travelers moved from platform to platform and could purchase things from small shops and kiosks. The street level outside the rear end of the station held a wide sidewalk and a streetcar station.
But what the town doesn't know is that this station will become the site of one famous train disaster.
The train serving the express connection number 56 from Granville to Paris on the 22nd of October, 1895, consisted of 3 luggage cars, a mail car and 10 passenger cars pulled by Series 120 locomotive number 721. The Series 120 rode on 2 driven axles and a leading axle, pulling a separate tender with the coal supply. The Series 120 was built in the second half of the 1800s in a variety of versions, each differing by minor details: open-closed cab, different whistles, different smokestack, etc. Number 721 was built in 1877 and featured a slightly larger boiler and bigger wheelbase between the driven axles than its predecessors. 36 units of the version were made. The size of the locomotive is unknown, but it's listed at weighing 50 metric tons and was able to travel faster than 65 km per hour, 40 miles per hour. Train number 56 departs Granville on the 22nd of October, 1895, at 8:45 a.m., heading for Paris Montparnasse. It's under the command of Mr. Pellerin, assisted by the fireman Mr. Garnier. A fireman is the person primarily responsible for steadily supplying coal material to the fire, heating the locomotive's boiler. The heavy train covers an uneventful journey and eventually departs Versailles station, situated to the immediate southwest of Paris, at approximately 3:40 p.m. with 131 passengers, running 7 minutes behind schedule. Mr. Pellerin drives as fast as he deems acceptable to try and cut down on the delay. Approaching Paris Montparnasse station at an estimated 45 km per hour, 28 miles per hour, with the intention to brake late and hard when he nears the station. The Aiguilet family runs a newspaper stand at the station, located just outside the building on the northern side, mostly selling to pedestrians and people using the streetcars. Mr. Aiguilet had just handed the stand over to his wife at approximately 3:50 p.m. as he went to pick up the evening newspapers. Back then, some newspapers published more than once per day, from a nearby distributor. Train number 56 is nearing the station at the same time, with Mr. Pellerin applying full brakes, only to find that the pneumatic brake system fails to have any effect on the speed at all. The physical locomotive brake, functioning by pressing a brake shoe onto the wheels, is wildly inadequate to slow the train down in time on its own. Mr. Pellerin and his colleague, seeing the far end of the station rapidly come closer, jump off the train, landing on the platform just before the train reaches the end of the tracks at approximately 40 km per hour, 25 miles per hour.
And then, all of a sudden, it happened. The train crashes through the station.
The locomotive pulverizes the wooden buffer stop, carves a path through 30 m/98 feet of tile-floored concourse, obliterates a kiosk, whose owner got out of the way in time as they saw the train coming, and smashes through the 1.25 m/4 feet thick stone wall at the end of the station. The locomotive, drastically slowed by the repeated impacts, falls off the end of the station, burying its leading end in the pavement down below as debris showers the sidewalk. Its back end ends up leaned against the station wall, pinning the tender, which is held in place by the luggage car it's still coupled to against the wall. The noise of the crashing train scared the streetcar's horses away and the locomotive happened to clear the Agilid's newspaper stand, but Miss Agilid is fatally struck by falling stones, becoming the accident's sole victim. The station's clocks stop as the train crashed through the end wall. It's exactly 4 p.m. A few passengers are registered with minor bruises, and the locomotive crew survives their tumble on the platform with minor injuries as well. The handbrake of the kitchen car along with the resistance of the derailed cars hold the train in place after the accident, while the locomotive was relatively safely stuck in place, pinning the tender to the wall, which also keeps it at too steep an angle to slide down the wall. The noise still attracted a lot of attention, drawing locals to the odd sight. The local police reacted by sending more and more men for crowd control. Records show a total of 120 officers tried to keep well over 1,000 civilians clear of the wreckage by 5:30 p.m. Countless locals also purchased train tickets with no intention of traveling, just to get around the police barriers by walking onto the platforms and gawk at the sight from there. The locomotive crew is detained and is interrogated immediately after the accident, claiming that the pneumatic brake failed to apply after working flawlessly at the prior station and ahead of a nearby level crossing. Mr. Garnier claims that he tried to improve deceleration by reversing the steam valves, meaning the cylinders now tried to slow the connecting rods driving the wheels, rather than accelerating them, and by sanding, a practice that sees sand piped onto the rails in front of the wheels to increase grip. This was done a few hundred meters outside the station, while the train was traveling at 65 kilometers per hour, 40 miles per hour. However, engineers examining the locomotive find evidence, of which kind is not recorded, showing that the reversal of the valves, which provides significant deceleration, only occurred a few dozen meters outside the station. The train cars were towed away shortly after the accident, followed by the baggage and mail cars being placed back on the tracks and towed away. It took 48 hours for the recovery of the locomotive to be permitted. A first attempt was made by rigging up 14 horses to slowly drag it down to street level, which failed, followed by a 250-ton winch being set up, powered by 10 men. The tender was then tethered to the station building before the locomotive was lowered down to street level. Lastly, the tender was dragged back inside the station and removed. Mechanics at the maintenance facility find that the locomotive had suffered little actual damage, with their records from the train's examination listing a few deformations and surface level damage to the locomotive along with a not closer defined ruptured brake pipe on the train. Engineers rush to the maintenance facility to examine the train, especially the brakes, but find that it has already been fixed by the time they arrive. The exact nature of the brake failure could never be determined as the brakes had been rebuilt by the time investigators got to it, leaving only vague theories on what occurred. The brake system used by the train is referred to as an indirect pneumatic brake, which has pressurized reservoirs on each car that apply the brakes when the air from the reservoirs is directed to the brakes. A main pneumatic line running along the train is kept under pressure as well, its job being, in simplified terms, keeping the valves on those reservoirs shut so by overpowering them so that air can't go from the reservoirs to the brakes. The brakes will apply if that main line is ruptured or pressure from it is released. However, a loss of pressure in the reservoirs will not apply the brakes, instead disabling them. The locomotive crew found themselves charged with manslaughter and 5 counts of negligent injury, as it was decided that they had gone needlessly fast and then reacted to the brake failure late, worsening the outcome of the failure. There was even a guideline saying Montparnasse was to be approached at a speed slow enough to stop without the pneumatic brakes, but adherence to the guideline was allegedly next to non-existent. A conductor was also put on trial, having to explain why he failed to apply handbrakes until after the train had come to a stop when he should have noticed excessive speed.
Mr. Perlin ended up being sentenced to 2 months and a 50-franc fine for murder and purposely people harm.
Lessening circumstances, while his fireman was sentenced to 25 francs fine, the same as the conductor. For approximate reference, 50 francs were worth approximately as much as $273 US today, although the time span makes for a poor comparability. Lessening circumstances noted by the court involved a spotless 19-year record, the fact that the ban on pneumatic brakes at the station was rarely obeyed, and that Mr. Pellerin had been on duty without brakes for 6 hours and 45 minutes by the time he was meant to stop at the station. The Western Railway Company, the owner of the train and employer of the locomotive crew, accepted civil liability for the death of Miss Agilid. They signed a contract with her widower which guaranteed the Agilid family damage pay, full funding of their 2 children's education as well as eventual employment with the railway company. The old Montparnasse station played an important role in history once more in August 1944, when the German governor of Paris surrendered to the French army at the station. It lived on until it was replaced by a new station a short distance to the south, today's Montparnasse station in 1960, being demolished in 1969. The site is now occupied by the Tour Montparnasse, a 210m/690 feet skyscraper which, as of 2023, holds the title for the third highest building in France. The oddity of the aftermath, along with the long time the wreckage sat around in a downtown area, led to a certain degree of fame, supported by the famous photographs being used for various media again and again over the last 100 plus years. The famous photo of the locomotive leaned against the station wall has been used on various album covers, been printed onto schoolbooks, used as cover art for notepads and adapted to comics in more or less authentic versions. An amusement park in Brazil even displays a large-scale replica at the edge of their parking lot. Lastly, the accident of course didn't go unnoticed in the movie and TV industry, with news of the accident even reaching the US shortly after it happened. Fictionalized adaptations can thus be found in a few movies and shows, from the children's show Thomas the Tank Engine to a drastically dramatized sequence in the 2011 Scorsese movie Hugo, which ends with a train at the station in the same unique pose.
It's been 130 years since this crash, and hopefully we never see another acting like this. Never again.